Welcome back to the Snod Pod with your mortgage resource, Jon Snodgrass, where we're talking real estate, mortgages, plumbing, and beyond. I've got Brian Fitzpatrick in here. He's the Director of Operations at Mr. Holland Services, and he's also a master plumber. Brian, hey, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
You're welcome, man. Snod Pod.
Yeah.
So I like to just kind of start out the podcast to kind of just hear your journey. Like, you know, I remember we've been friends for 25 years, went to Toast East together. And I remember very early on, maybe late teens, 20, somewhere around there, you decided to become a plumber. I guess tell me about your journey to where you're at right now.
Sure, yeah. I graduated high school just like a lot of people do, and I did go to college right out of high school briefly. Took about a year of college for me to really figure out that that's not where I belonged. And as a kid, we were always working on things in the house and, always encouraged to sort of try to fix your own stuff, right? And my father actually suggested to think about maybe plumbing. I think he maybe saw something in maybe what I did.
Sure.
And I did go to what they call the preparatory plumbing class that was offered at a community college in town here.
Okay.
And outside of that, it kind of gave me a springboard into the plumbing trade.
Okay.
So, and outside of that, you basically had to get an apprenticeship. And once you're registered with the state and you get an apprenticeship, you can got to serve so many hours. You got to achieve so many goals. It's a 5-year process for a plumber. It's a 5-year process for an electrician. And outside of that, you have to take a state exam, which qualifies you to be called a journeyman of those two trades. You can then obviously take it further, and you can continue your education. You can continue to learn, and eventually take another exam through the state, like a lot of accreditation that takes place with the state. You got to take an exam. And then after that, if you pass that one, you can call yourself a master of the trade.
That sounds so a master plumber.
Correct.
In your case.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how it might apply to other arenas.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess with any sort of profession out there, plumbing is not really unique when it comes to, you learn principles, you learn the foundations of all these things. By no means does a master plumber know everything about anything, right? Considering when it's coming to plumbing, it's some of these, what you learn is how to navigate sort of to get to the results. You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to know sort of everything out there, but you definitely you have to know how to navigate through things. And I think that really transcends any profession, right? If you don't know the answer, you can find it, or you can know how to go get it.
Sure. So kind of, it sounds like I'm hearing like kind of humble or humility. Like, hey, I don't know. Even though I'm a master plumber, I don't know everything.
Yeah, I think it's almost impossible, right? And especially too in America, plumbing is regional, right? We're cold up here. We have to bury our pipes deeper than they do in Florida and other places, and so there's unique sort of scenarios that play out in each region that I'm accustomed to, but if you were to get somebody from a different region, they would need to sort of pick up on that stuff. So
okay, so let's kind of transition into, hey, I'm a new homeowner, first-time homeowner. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
You're super happy and you're excited, but like, what kind of advice are you given, or would you give to a first-time home buyer, in the plumbing realm, or I know you're director of operations of Mr. Holland Services, so you guys cover electrical and other stuff. What kind of tips or stuff would you?
Well, when you're going into a new home, obviously you're going to have a house inspection, right? You're going to have an inspector come through and sort of flag the things that they find that are maybe somewhat interesting or need to be looked into further. After the sale, you can either sort of use that inspection report and maybe go through some of those items depending on how the sale was made. But also then you kind of need to sort of, a house has a sort of entity as itself, right? It's got characteristics. Certain drains act a certain way. Certain electrical outlets act a certain way. This light flickers. I think getting to know those items takes some time, right? And then I think putting a plan together as a couple or a single person to sort of put a list together of what you're going to maybe tackle first, second, last, is a very important piece. Again, people that have newer homes under 10 years, there's still stuff that needs to be done to those homes.
I'm thinking a couple of things that I've run into where, hey, there's, the drain is starting to clog in the shower. So like, should I be using any liquid type thing to put it down there? Because, I'm kind of a hairy dude and, some stuff gets clogged,
You definitely want to steer clear of certain chemicals, right?
Yeah.
Real quick story about, plastic pipe is made up of chemicals. One of those chemicals is chlorine. Ironically, some of these drain products that people are sort of getting from home centers, they actually contain things that sort of manipulate or dissolve chlorine. So some sort of acid or things of that nature, you really want to steer clear of adding that to a drain, because you actually can compromise even PVC, which these days people kind of deem as indestructible.
Yeah.
Not true when it comes to certain chemicals. Now, drains themselves, it's comparable, honestly, to the human sort of, digestive system, where drains have sort of digestive qualities that they can take on certain amount of soaps, fats, oils, greases, but yet it's like a probiotic, right? You're going to want to keep your drain to digest these things and process them. Putting chemicals down there like a bleach or something can actually kill that sort of biological, and it actually causes backups that take place worse.
Okay.
So some of those products are a little gimmicky, right?
Yeah.
They do make chemical products these days that are sort of probiotics for drains.
Okay.
And that's something that we would encourage people to definitely do research on and find.
Okay. But don't necessarily pour, your standard stuff down there.
No. And in fact, a lot of that's, I don't know. I've never heard of a lot of people that had a lot of success with some of those products long term.
Yeah, it's usually short term.
It's extremely short term. It's extremely sort of get you through the day, Band-Aid, not permanent fixes.
So I remember I was, when I was we were both living on the east side off of Brady Street. I got my first condo, and I'm like, I'm going to try to put this toilet in by myself. And you were like, John, no.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Let me go. I'm on YouTube. What are some projects, basic projects where you're like, hey, go on YouTube. You can do some certain things, but hey, you should be talking to an expert for certain things.
Absolutely. We're tradesmen these days are not mad or sort of upset when customers want to try things on their own. In fact, I've said this a number of times. Those customers actually understand what we're up against better.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's a little easier for us to explain what we're going to have to go through to achieve whatever we're working on.
Yeah.
But I these days with videos available, with YouTube available, we're okay with if you had a little bit of a mechanical background and you wanted to sort of put a new toilet in for yourself, go for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Not me.
Yeah. Certain people probably shouldn't touch it. But we're okay with that. I think that's a misconception that tradesmen kind of get mad about that. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't want to sort of do things and have you pay us for things that you could possibly do on your own.
Sure.
We know where our sort of position in society lies, and we're comfortable with that.
What are the most common calls you're getting, for plumbing, either emergencies or just like regular, calls?
A lot of stuff we see is from an emergency sort of demand standpoint, water heaters leaking, major leaks in the basement, sewer backups that are, kind of catastrophic.
Yeah.
Those are things that we see, and it's how people sort of stumble upon them is also sort of interesting. We've heard stories where people, I haven't been in the basement in 2 or 3 days, and when they go down, it's a mess. Right?
Well, I remember when I bought my place, I called you, so 6 years ago, and I told you how old the water heater was, and you're like, John, you should really consider replacing it. It looks like maybe a year or so. Sometimes they can go longer. And I'm like, nah, I think it's good. The previous homeowner, I think, handled it, well. And then right after I finished my basement renovation, within a week, Sunday night, it breaks.
It fails.
And so going back to what you were kind of talking about, new homeowners, like, take the advice of maybe the home inspector, or in your case, I work with Holland Service. I'm on the club or the VIP.
Correct,
where I pay a little extra, where you guys come out once a year and check everything. How important is it for check up on things each year?
It's extremely important. From a plumbing perspective, you can't necessarily foresee the future. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you when something's going to break. But there are certain things that we can sort of pin down a time frame of what their longevity or lifespan is. And, they usually hold pretty true, right? Industry pretty much tells you 10 years for a water heater is when you should be considering to think about replacing it. From a home buying perspective, if you're walking into some place and, the heater's 25 years old, that should be something that you probably bring up and sort of negotiate to either take care of it yourself or however the sale is going to go through. We see that a lot. Actually, we're a part of a lot of sort of sales of homes where, somebody flagged the heater, right? And they want it taken out and replaced. And that's just good practice. From a maintenance aspect, from HVAC, there are certain things in HVAC equipment that the manufacturer requires some certified person, right, to do annual maintenance to maintain a warranty. So if the house is changing hands, and somebody put a sort of an inspection report on the side of the furnace, pay attention to that. If it's under warranty, that could be a sort of a facilitation of a warranty. So those are definite things you want to look at.
Definitely when you're moving into the new home. So we're going to wrap this episode in a minute or two, and then we've got so much more to talk about. But you've told me some funny stories over the years where you get a call. I don't know if you can share a story or two quick, somewhat quick.
Sure, yeah. I remember drain calls. I was a drain guy for a long time, and we used to go on just anything when the drain was plugged. And I remember one where someone had family over and they were treating their garbage disposal like it was a garbage can.
Okay.
And when we got there, we're not, and it's funny because we always have to ask a lot of questions, right? And people think, well, what are you getting at? The drain's plugged, just fix it, right? We're like, well, we want to know what extent we want to, what we're dealing with here, right?
We want to be, plan for it before we get there.
Do I need to bring dynamite, right? I mean, that's one of the things where, and so I remember pulling all sorts of bones and just chicken stuff and and you can't get it all out, right? And so you just don't, you're questioning, well, how much did you put in there? And again, we're not trying to sort of embarrass anyone. It's just
you're
that
diagnosing
we just need to know to what extent did this go on for, right? And so, there's a lot of stuff like that. And
so what was it?
It was a full chicken. They tried to sort of force down a drain, and they got it sort of halfway down, right? But at that point, that was it for that drain. So,
wow. Like a rotisserie chicken?
Like a small Cornish hen, maybe.
Yeah. All right, that's a great story. Well, all right, we got so much more to talk about. I want to talk about generators. And much more.
Absolutely.
Some heating stuff. I got some questions because I just had a problem with my furnace that your guys just told me about. All right. Well, this has been a great kind of first episode. I guess first, the biggest take, don't put a rotisserie chicken down your garbage disposal. But this has been the Snod Pod with Jon Snodgrass, your mortgage resource, where we're talking real estate, plumbing, mortgages, and beyond. Stay tuned. We got some more with Brian Fitzpatrick, Master Plumber, coming up soon.